Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And joining me tonight is writer and journalist Emma Wolfe. And he's back. He was found this morning walking around Essex in just his pyjama bottoms. But we've captured him and he's back on the show for about the 25th time. Former Labour MP and Minister Stephen Pound. Are you all right, Stephen?
Grand, thanks very much. It's good to be out the care home.
Look, guys, bit of fun. This week in Parliament again, we've had a debate on the local elections in May. We know that up to about 20 different councils have asked for their elections to be delayed in the name of reorganisation. Get my words out. Is this a cynical ploy, Stephen, to avoid democracy because reform is on the rise?
Well, far be it from me to imply that there is an element of conspiracy here, but it does actually reek, to be perfectly honest. Look, basically where we start from is actually a sensible place. The idea at the moment you've got parish councillors, county councillors, district councillors, regional mayors. You know, you've got a massive, great tier of administration. It's a good idea to get shot of that and actually compress them down and have so that you actually have more say in who you're actually voting for. However, if the idea is, the justification is that if they don't have them this year, they're going to put them forward till next year. I think that if reform wasn't snapping at our heels, and I speak to both the Tories and Labour there, then I rather doubt that this would have happened. So I think it's very, very convenient, and the fact is most of the councils that want to put them off are Tory councils. I think it's pretty silly. There's got to be some way we can work it out. Let's go ahead with May. We're all geared up for May, and then if we have to reorganise later on, so be it.
Emma, I think there's been an outbreak of common sense from our left in the corner. It's a rarity, but I think it's hit the nail on the head.
I'm absolutely amazed at what Stephen says. Look, call it what you like, delay, postponement, reorganisation, devolution, whatever. The fact is, Labour are going to get absolutely trounced. And this is going to be the beginning of the end for Keir Starmer. You cannot do this. The timing is suspicious, to say the least. Fine, if you want to reorganise, fine. If you want to, work towards devolution, that's fine. But don't do it now. This is really... Is it any coincidence that it's councils like Thurrock and Essex where key reform target areas, where they are snapping at Labour's heels? All this does is further undermine people's faith and trust. What people are saying is, this isn't right. Fine, ignore the petition where over 3 million people asked for a general election. Ignore that, but give us our democratic rights. This is not on. Yeah. And I'm sorry, would they be reorganising these local elections if Labour were riding high in the polls? No, they wouldn't. No.
Stephen, do you think this may backfire on these areas? Because my thinking is, if we cancel the elections to these, I think it's 20 different areas, we then concentrate on areas like mine in Nottinghamshire, where the county elections will go ahead. They've already said that, and next door in Lincolnshire. Yeah. We can pump all our resources into those sort of areas, and get people like Nigel up on a regular basis and campaign on that sort of anti-democracy ticket. What's happening in the South, they're fit. Come and vote for us.
Well, the Liberals will love it because the Liberals really love it. They can have to concentrate on one or two areas. Yeah. They can hurl all their activities at it. Yeah. But look, a couple of things. Let's not forget, it's mostly Conservative councils who are actually asking for the deferral. But the thing is, the very basic statement here, and people do love something that's absolutely basic and understandable. It is a denial of democracy. It is hiding from the electorate, and there's no way you can get away from that. You can dress it up and you can cover it with all sorts of spices and God knows what, but the reality is people will see we would have had a vote in May. We're not having a vote in May. It's as simple and as easy and as wrong.
This undermines the bedrock of our democracy. Labour need to understand that you fight fair. You don't change the rules halfway through. You don't move the goalposts. Yeah. We know what will happen. Starmer at some point will throw Rachel Reeves under the bus. The whole thing. That's what he's going to do. But we need to hold these local elections in May, give people their democratic rights.
Well, the only argument I'd have against that is that, there's a fair old cost involved. And I think to a certain extent, you might actually say it saves money. But look, we've had plenty of elections put off before. We had in the foot and mouth crisis, in the petrol crisis, elections were deferred. They're put off for 6 months, a year in some cases.
But they were reasonable grounds, Stephen, weren't they?
Well, no, that is something which is almost...
Starmer knows this is the beginning of the end for him.
Emma's just mentioned...
absolutely
if Labour leaves all their seats, Keir Starmer is still safe.
They're going to get hammered.
Yeah. A different subject, slightly, Stephen. Emma's just mentioned Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, our Chancellor. Yep. I made a comment in the Chamber a few weeks back, and I labelled Rachel from accounts. Yes. Yeah. And then we get to your serial whingers on X, formerly Twitter. People like Matthew Stadlen, he's not here to defend himself, by the way, saying it's sexist. That comment is sexist to call her Rachel from accounts. Do you agree with that, Stephen?
No. How the hell can that be sexist?
Sorry, I have to interrupt. She is the one who's made a massive big deal about being the first female chancellor for, what was it, 300 years. She went on...
First ever.
Sorry, there you go. The first ever chancellor of the Exchequer. She went on and on and on about her gender.
Yeah.
So you saying Rachel from accounts, it could be Rory from accounts.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, it could be Stephen from accounts.
We're highlighting the fact that she
I couldn't
may have
even spell the word.
fabricated, that she may have embellished some aspects of her CV.
But what is it, Stephen, about the left that always look for, every time you make a statement or put a tweet out or say something in Parliament, they're looking for sexism, misogynism, they're looking for racism. It all goes back to that, don't it, eventually?
Well, we used to have a saying in Northern Ireland that people walk 25 miles out of their way to be offended.
Exactly.
But what I would say, it's not just the left. There's plenty of people out there, plenty of people who actually will find something to object to in absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I have to say, they watch 10 minutes of this programme, they can probably come up with 25 things to object to.
Yeah, it's normally the left in the corner.
But we do our best.
Yeah. Emma, surely this is, it's closing down. Labour say that they are the party of free speech, which we know they're not. We've seen people going to prison over the past 6 or 7 months since Labour come to power for hearty words on Facebook and Twitter.
Ridiculous.
It's absolute nonsense, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Inciting to kill people by burning down a hostel. That's a crime.
Yeah, well, that's a wicked and awful, horrible thing to say, Stephen.
Let's agree on that.
Then when you see paedophiles and people, rapists being sentenced to less amount of time in prison than somebody who's wrote something on Twitter or Facebook.
There's no paedophile or racist who's got less than 9 months. None. You show me one anyway.
Yeah, but I'm talking about people on Facebook who's been I think there's one who got, I think it was 7 years, was it? 5 or 7 years, something like that. No. But I digress. You can fact check that, Stephen. Maybe I'm wrong. But let's go back to the local elections again. Yeah. It will backfire, in my opinion.
It will, because the message is very, very simple. And people, it was absolutely right. People will actually see this is denying them their democracy.
They do.
And in all honesty,
I think it's 11 million people that's going to be denied a vote.
And the funny thing is, often there isn't that much interest in local elections.
Well, there is now.
This has really backfired because it's absolutely got it onto the front pages.
Yeah.
People, friends of mine who aren't even interested in politics, are saying, "Hang on a minute, we get a vote, we get our rights. Why can't I vote in May?"
Because when people have something like the right to a vote, Stephen, then for 100 years or so, and then you're going to take that off them, they're going to be furious.
Well, don't forget, it's only about 100 years since we had the universal franchise in this country. But I used to reckon the only way to actually get people to vote was to make voting illegal. You make voting illegal, everybody say, I demand the right to vote.
Absolutely.
And they come flying in.
There is.
And they're dressing it up with all these words about delay and postponement, reorganisation, devolution.
Yeah.
Call it, if it quacks like a duck.
I actually, to be honest with you, I sort of not get the argument for cancelling the elections, but I get the bit about local councils, parish councils, district councils.
Of course. Okay, Lee. So reorganise once. Let's have our election.
Yeah.
Then let's sit down and have root and branch reform.
Exactly.
Fair's fair.
Exactly.
You don't do it now.
Yeah.
But don't forget,
don't start looking at this in December.
They could have done that.
It doesn't apply in London, doesn't apply in Scotland.
No.
There's great chunks of the country who are not having elections.
But what they could have done, Stephen, is let the local elections go ahead in May, and then let's have this conversation, this debate after the elections, and then during the next cycle, and then.
Well, let's also look at the fact that we don't have a representative democracy. Let's also look at that, which they're not very keen to do, and reform are not keen to do.
Parliament doesn't represent this country at all. At all. We got 4.1 million votes in Reform
And how many
UK.
seats did you get?
5.
Exactly.
And the Lib Dems got 3.5 million votes and got 72 seats.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And the Labour Party, I've asked the leader of the House to allow some Reform UK MPs on select committees, and they won't do it.
And yet they want to reorganise local councils.
To be more democratic, yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
It's unbelievable. Stephen, why do you think that is? Why won't they let Reform UK MPs on select committees?
Well, the point of the select committees just aren't big enough. You've got 5 parties. Is it 5 or 6 parties now?
But it's in their gift. They can change that just like that. It's in the leader's gift to do
it's
it.
more costly. I thought you were always against
to what?
bureaucracy. You're against more and more legislation. We don't have the select committees with 40 or 50 people on them, do we?
No, we have about 12 people on, Stephen.
Yeah.
I was on the Home Affairs Select Committee for just over 2 years, and I got to have some really juicy debates with and hold people to account, and it's really good. But I see them now, and it's just backslapping. You've got so many Labour MPs on these select committees. They're never going to bring, for example, Home Office officials to task and criticise them.
Well, I'm sorry, but in the last Parliament, under Johnson's Parliament, it was exactly the opposite. You know, we had hardly any Labour MPs on it, but we certainly, people like Darren Jones on Treasury certainly have made their voices heard.
Yeah, but will they this time though, Stephen?
Well, I mean, I would have thought you guys are going to kick the door down and gate crash the Select Committee anyway. You'll do it somehow. You'll turn up. You'll end up some way of actually giving evidence to committees.
Okay, so predictions then, Emma, for this May's election. So I think there's like I say, there's Nottinghamshire going ahead. There's Lincolnshire. We've got some mayoral elections as well.
Labour are going to do very, very badly.
Yeah. What about the Tories?
Not so well.
Not so
I think
well.
Reform are going to have a good
Stephen?
day.
Huge regional variations. Andrea Jenkins in Lincolnshire, I think, has got a good chance
Yeah.
of getting elected. She's basically of this parish. It's going to be very regional because there's no elections in London. There's huge chunks of the country where there are no elections. But where there are, they're mostly Tory seats. And so I think that if Reform starts winning seats off the Tories in big numbers, then the game changes.
And I think Emma's right, what she said earlier, is that this has actually focused people's attention on areas like mine and Lincolnshire. Yeah. And the country's going to be watching.
I think overwhelmingly Labour are going to do badly because the anger which started with winter fuel allowance and all of that, and it has just gone on and on. It's like a snowball. It has been gathering pace since Starmer came in and since this series of catastrophic and really vindictive decisions attacking every person who is vulnerable or struggling.
Emma's looking very angry here. Stephen's still looking confused, but he's out the weather now. His meds have kicked in. That's a great debate, guys. But